Hello and welcome to Real Person Yoga. I am Janelle. Great to have you with me today. We're going to be doing a class, and so getting ready for some movement, following along to bring some movement to your day. And so I've got a fun class ahead of us, or at least I think it's fun. You can choose your own adventure always through it. And so, starting by settling down into your mat, I always like to start laying down because I think that is the easiest way to just focus on the now, to sink in, to let anything else that might be happening flutter away. So, laying down and letting gravity pull down your body into the mat or the floor beneath you. Feeling that heaviness, opening up your shoulder blades, maybe even tucking them under or walking them down, creating some space between your ears and your shoulders. Tucking the chin slightly, having some length through the back of the neck. And just feeling gravity come across your body, your arms feeling heavy, your core sinking down, your hips maybe even opening, your feet splaying open lightly. Noticing the breath, focusing on the inhale and the exhale. Starting to deepen that breath. Feeling the diaphragm expand and contract with each breath that we take. Maybe even starting to fill up the lungs completely. Inhaling, imagining the chest rising, the ribs opening up, filling up completely, and even the very bottom of your lungs and your diaphragm being fully engaged. Inhaling every sip of air in that you can, and then exhaling, starting from the lower, feeling the ribs sink down. Exhaling all the way from the top of the lungs. Taking a few of those at your own pace. Inhaling deeply. And exhaling softly. Deep breathing is the easiest way to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and the digest. This is where cortisol is not being produced. There's no stress hormones being released, and we could really start to relax just by having a couple of deep breaths. Starting to bring some movement to your bodies, wiggling your fingers and your toes, your wrists and your ankles, getting all those nice cracks and creaks out. Maybe even bringing your knees and your elbows. And then taking a nice good morning stretch. So bring your hands above head, flipping your wrists, pointing your toes, and getting as tall as possible. Feeling your spine lengthen, feeling your hips kick out. Exhale, bring your knees up into your chest. And if you want, you can roll back and forth, really imagining that lower tailbone area pressing into the floor, into the mat. Feeling that nice little massage going from side to side. Relaxing the shoulders. Excellent. Now, hovering the knees over the hips. This posture is the easier it is, means the more your knees are coming in towards the body, the harder to make it harder, or to, if you are looking for more, start to bring those away from the body, maybe even touching or hovering the toes. And so we're just going to invite some gentle movement here of doing some toe taps. So having it be really easy is just maybe not even touching all the way down to the ground, but having some gentle movement of the hips. Feeling that lower back press deeply into the mat will activate into your core. If you're looking for more, touching down completely, or even bringing those feet farther away from the body having it be more of an ankle tap than a toe tap. If this is really hard on your low back, you can always tuck your hands underneath your hips, and that little bit of height really just helps tip that pelvis and relieve some of the pressure on the low back. So doing a couple more of these. Excellent. And then hugging the knees in towards the chest one more time, feeling that release. Starting with the core, warming things up in the middle of our bodies, activating deeply. All right, hugging the left knee into the body, kick the right leg out and let it just sink down onto the floor. If your knee came up, that's fine. Hug it back down into the body and start to feel the stretch in that right quad and maybe even into the left hamstring or hip flexor area. This can be very intensive on your hips. If you need to bend that knee, go right ahead, or keep it active if you're looking for some more strength building into this posture. Hugging that knee in, maybe even rolling that leg around in the hip joint to find that sweet spot. Maybe it's out a little bit more, maybe it's hugging in a little bit more. Rolling those shoulders away from the ears and taking a couple of deep breaths here. Maybe even pointing and flexing the feet. Excellent. We're going to switch. So by bringing that right leg up, release the left, grab the right, hug it into your body. And you can either keep that left knee bent or you can bring it flat, letting it sink into your mat, activating into the feet, pointing and flexing, and playing around with that left leg, trying to find that sweet spot of what your hips want today. Every day might be a little bit different. Maybe you want it really hugging in, isolating into more of the outer hip flexor, or opening it up, just getting into that hip joint completely. Rolling the shoulders back and down, relaxing the jaw and the forehead. Trying to get rid of any stress or tension here. I do like to hold this posture for a long time because our hips hold so much, and this really gets into them in such a gentle way. All right, releasing that leg, dropping both feet down, planting them underneath your knees, and maybe even windshield wiping your legs from side to side. Dropping your knees from one side to the other, releasing those hips completely. Coming to stillness and to neutral. Making sure our knees are over our ankles or kind of in that line. I don't want your legs to be splaying out or even splaying in. Just having them be neutral, but also starting to activate in them. So imagining a little tuck of the pelvis here, pressing into your heels or into your feet completely. Your hips will naturally start to lift up, bringing your spine off the ground. And just coming gently into this, not really pressing into a high bridge or anything like that, but just warming up the body there, holding here, setting those legs, maybe even imagining there's a block between your legs that you're pressing into. Tucking the chin. And on your next inhale, shoot those hips up even higher. Feeling the stretch be completely through your quads and your glutes. Everything is active here. You're nice and high up on your shoulder blades, or your hips are nice and high as you can get them. And then as we come down, imagine one vertebrae touching down at a time. So starting to lower the hips, giving yourself a nice little back massage as you lower down. Excellent. Releasing completely. Maybe even resetting the hands. If you want to try them with your palms facing up, that is always a great option to keep your collarbone and shoulders nice and open. Or if you want more, you can start to reach for your heels. And on your next inhale, pressing into the feet, lifting the hips up, coming up decently, and maybe even lifting the toes up off the ground. Wiggling your toes back and forth, getting into your heels. Feel how that really starts to activate into the glutes more so than the quads. Bringing your feet all the way down, and then maybe even pressing into your toes, lifting your heels up off the ground. Keeping the distance between your knees equal, not splaying out in either direction. Feeling how that activates into your quads. Rolling back down into your heels, lift those toes back up. Bringing into your toes one more time, getting those heels up off the ground, maybe even walking your feet in slightly. Feeling that extra height that you get there. Wonderful. Flatten the feet and roll your back down. Great work. Relaxing here. Drop your hips or your knees to the left, coming into a gentle twist. So maybe if you would like to stack your knees, go right ahead, or keep your feet planted and just let your knees drop where they do. This will kind of target into some of those hip flexors and hamstrings. And then if you want more, look to the right. And if you want more, you can bring your arms up alongside you, making sure they stay open. Inhaling and exhaling, feeling just a nice gentle twist. Bring the head back up to neutral. Bringing the knees back up. And getting ready to do the other side. So dropping the knees down towards the right, or just let them hang heavy, feeling that twist happen all the way through the spine. Maybe bring the arms up and looking towards the left. Returning the head to neutral, bringing the knees back up, and coming up to a seated position. So if you'd like to rock and roll up, you can hug your knees in and roll up, or you can just gently twist over and get up whatever way you'd like to, coming to seated. So sitting up nice and straight here. I understand that some people's knees and hips are very tight, and this might be what you look like, having them be quite crisscrossed and high up. Please feel free to grab blocks and bolsters or even pillows, propping your legs up if one is different from the other, coming into a nice seated position here so that there's not a lot of stress happening on your knees, and imagining your shoulders being stacked over your hips and your head not turtling forward but coming and tucking in, creating that length along the back of your neck. Imagining a string coming from the top of your head or the crown of the head, pulling up gently like your upper body is completely weightless. Feeling gravity sit down on your legs and your hips, rooting your sits bones deeply down into the ground. For some people, this here might even feel quite like work, because oftentimes we're hunching forward, rolling, and our heads protrude decently forward. So taking a moment to stack those and really open up into the collarbones can feel quite intensive. So I encourage you to do that. Taking a moment now, inhaling, hands up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Again, inhale, hands up. Rolling the shoulders back and down. Dropping hands to heart center. One more time. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Now, working with range of control, not just flexibility, start to come towards the left here. So leading with your chest and your collarbone, twisting towards the left. Inhale, get a little taller. Exhale, twist a little deeper. Keeping those shoulder blades rolled back and down, nice and open. And then once you've gotten to what you think is your max, then you can drop your hands down and maybe anchor in, going a little bit deeper. See how that's very different from bringing your hand over and then twerking your body into it. You're working with the strength that you have there to twist your body, and then anchor down. And if you want, you can twist a little deeper. Inhaling, getting a little taller. Exhaling, twisting a little deeper. Never coming to 100% right off the bat, but always working with a little bit of a range, coming to maybe 70%, and then building from there. That really helps you honor the fact that each day is different and each side is different. So looking over your left shoulder, rolling that right shoulder back, sitting up nice and tall, releasing, coming back to center. Let's get ready to do that again on the other side. So inhale, hands up. Exhale, hands heart to center. Inhale, hands up. Roll those shoulders down. Bring hands to heart center. Inhale one more time. Arms go up. Hands to heart center. Open up those shoulders and now come towards the right. Leading with your chest, feeling the twist go all the way through the back. And then dropping the hands down. And then anchoring down, maybe even deepening that twist. Every inhale getting a little taller. And every exhale moving into that space that's created. Looking over your right shoulder now, but keeping that left shoulder rolling back. Taking a couple of breaths here. Excellent. Returning to center. And maybe adjusting the props as we bring the soles of our feet to touch, coming into cobbler pose. So whether your knees are up here and you're propping up to your knees, or playing around with the space that your feet are away or closer to the body. Away makes it a little bit easier. Closer makes it a little bit more challenging. Pressing in to the hips and the legs, maybe even grabbing your knees and pulling up to have a nice straight spine, or if you can reach your calves or your ankles or your feet, whatever that might look like for you. Sitting up nice and tall and starting to tip forward from the hips, coming into a forward fold with the integrity of a nice straight back. Always starting there first, so leading with the heart and coming down. Whether your hands come to your feet, or if you can tent them on the ground, or walking them out, or bringing your elbows onto your legs, wherever you're at, working within that, but keeping the integrity of a nice straight back. And then tucking the chin, dropping the head down, and rounding into it, just feeling how delicious that quite feels. Holding here. Sinking deeply into this. Walking your hands closer to the body, coming up with helping hands. Bring your knees back together. And maybe even walking your feet a little bit wider apart. Bring your knees to touch just to reverse that a little bit, or have them sinking more toward the inside. Sometimes it's a little bit easier placing your hands behind you, leaning back into that, and then having some internal rotation happening with the legs and the hips. Still trying to stay nice and tall here, not sinking into it, having nice strong arms. Excellent. Great. Releasing the legs out and coming to all fours. So stacking your hands underneath your shoulders, knees under your hips. Let me adjust here. Maybe I'll even cut that out. We'll see. So coming into all fours, having your hips be over your knees and shoulders over your wrists, having a nice wide hand split here. So not having little baby fingers cupping down, but opening up your hands nice and wide, making sure each finger is as far apart from each other. That'll add a lot of stability into your pose. Now play around with your shoulders here. Can you roll your shoulders in and out? Lots of people notice the eye of their elbow rolling in or out, but trying to cue that in a couple of different ways. Feeling with the shoulders being nice and open, or the eyes of your elbows facing outwards. Starting with some nice cat-cow. So letting the hips tip forward, belly drops down, head looks up, press into those shoulders. And on your exhale, roll the spine back. Press into your hands, coming into angry cat, tucking the chin. Moving with that, just to bring some motion into the spine, working with your own breath. Inhaling forward, looking up. Exhaling, coming into angry cat, tucking the chin. Awesome. Doing a couple more of those. And then coming back to neutral. And looking over our left shoulder towards our feet. And then neutral. And looking over our right shoulder towards our feet. Just moving from side to side there. Feeling how the hips might want to move. Maybe even swaying them from side to side to really exaggerate that motion. And start to warm up the hips and the back. I always like to take a moment while we're here as well to do the wrists. So coming back to neutral, placing the fingers pointing to the outer edge of your mat, starting here, and then moving gently from one side, slowly to the other side. That'll start to get into your wrists and your arms. If you're looking for more, you can always start to point your fingers towards your knee. And then you're looking for the action of bending back slowly. So really controlling your weight here. You're not sitting right back over your feet, but you're getting into those wrists. This is much more intensive than just rocking from side to side. So finding whatever is working for you and your wrists today. Now, coming into gorilla wrists, so releasing your hands, maybe even shaking them out, clenching into a fist, and then adding some weight there. Feeling how that gets into the outer edges of the wrist. Or if you're looking for more, you can bring your fingers or your palms facing up and your fingers coming towards each other, really keeping yourself light. You're not pressing down into your hands at all here. And starting to stretch into that, controlling your weight. The more you press down, the more intensive this will be. Getting into the other side of your wrist. If that is absolute agony, you can do the exact same thing with your arms out in front of you and either flipping the fingers forward or pointing them down and pulling. It's just a fun alternative to control the things with your weight and staying forward. Because sometimes sitting down on your feet can be very intensive as well. So coming back to neutral, shaking your hands out, keeping your hands nice and splayed open. Coming down, tucking the toes underneath. We'll get into those toes a little bit. So starting to lean back, or even coming up onto your knees and leaning back a little bit. If your toes or your feet haven't been worked, this will be very intensive. So grabbing a bolster and sitting on the bolster, even having it be like so on your feet, keeps your weight nice and high. If you don't have a bolster, you can always control it. Or if you have a block, maybe even sitting on the high part of your block. This black one is a little bit thicker. Placing it between your feet and sitting on it. Or working with the medium level. Still opening up the shoulder blades nice and wide. Making sure your little baby toe is tucked under as well. Sometimes it gets forgotten in this toe stretch. Or if you want, coming onto your feet completely, or even reaching backwards to start to get into the legs as well. Excellent. Coming back up, releasing the feet, maybe even tapping them on your mat to release them fully. Bringing your left leg back behind you, planting it down on the ground, squaring off those hips, and starting to walk your right fingertips forward, whether you're just staying here, or if you're coming even more forward, or starting to lift up off the ground, starting to balance into your left hand and your right knee, or bringing that leg up completely, and reaching forward, having some natural traction of the spine here. Drop the hand down, drop the knee down, and come into the other side. Starting with the right foot planting back, squaring those hips off so you're not opening up into the hip. Staying nice and level, planting into that right hand, walking those left fingers forward, or even starting to lift them up off the ground, and then lifting that back leg up off, kicking up a little bit higher, but squaring those hips back down, reaching and getting some traction in on this side as well. Great work. Drop it, your hands and knees back down, and widen the legs, sit back into child's pose. Relaxing deeply here. If your forehead doesn't come down to the ground, it's really nice to have it connect with something. So grabbing a block and sitting it down there, resting your forehead on that. Having some softness be through the body and into the hips. Looking forward, powering into your arms, moving any props away. Tucking the toes under and pressing into downward dog. Maybe rolling over the feet, bending the knees deeply, getting into the back. Not focusing on getting the heels down to the ground, but releasing the hips. Walk your feet forward and dangle down into a nice forward fold, maybe even bending the knees to release that lower back, or straightening the knees but not hyperextending them to get more into the legs. Inhale, come halfway up, straighten that back nice and completely. Exhale, bending the knees or folding down, keeping the nice straight back, powering into your feet and standing up with the power of your legs. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Power down into your legs, coming into a nice strong mountain pose. Stacking your hips over your ankles, shoulders rolling back and down, maybe even pressing into the hands to open up that collarbone. And back of the neck being nice and tall, crown of the head lifting as if there's that string pulling you up. Inhale, drop the arms. Exhale, roll those shoulders back. Relaxing now, bring the left foot back, dropping it down, maybe even squaring the outside edge of your mat with the side of your foot coming into warrior two. You can always play around with that foot placement as well. Sometimes it might feel better to have it be a little bit more open. I'm over exaggerating here. Or having it staying a little bit tucked in. Just finding how your hips work, because how that femur bone goes into the hip socket is different for everyone. So I give you the freedom to not have that back foot be perfectly aligned with the back of your mat. All right, so bringing a bend to that front knee, opening up here, imagining that hip rolling back, but keeping the knee aligned over the ankle. So lots of times the cue was to roll that hip back, but then your knee would be popping off over your ankle, and that is actually worse for your body than just keeping your hip a little bit more forward and having that proper alignment. Bring your arms up, and then start to tip forward, coming into extended triangle. So maybe resting your elbow onto your knee and extending that arm up. Rolling that shoulder open, maybe even looking up, powering into those feet as if you're ripping your mat apart. If you're looking for more here, you can always start to float that other arm up. Or if this is too much, you can always drop the arm or come into prayer. Just finding what is working best for you today. Inhale, bending, coming back up. And let's tip things over the other way, coming into reverse warrior. So sinking down into that leg and bringing your body back. Reaching however you want with your upper arm, but staying nice and open in that shoulder. And lots of times as we come back, we end up straightening that front leg. So bending into it. And you can even tuck the lower hand behind your back. Whatever feels best here. Whether it's walking it down the body or having it be behind your back. Come back to center and bring that back leg to the front of the mat. Coming back up to standing and getting ready to do the whole thing on the other side. So stepping that right foot back, squaring it off either with the edge of your mat or finding that spot in the hip that feels most delicious. I'm just going to face the other way. Sinking down into the legs, exploring that part of the hip of rolling that back hip back, but keeping the left knee over the ankle. Bringing the arms up and sinking down into it. If you find that you're very shaky or wobbly here, you could always shorten your stance. That'll help make the pose a little bit easier and so that you don't have to sink as much into the leg. Or if you're looking to make it harder, you can always widen the stance, sinking deeper into that front leg and powering down however you want. All right, coming into extended side angle, dropping the left elbow onto the knee, opening up and reaching forward. Maybe even looking up, but keeping that knee over the ankle. If you want more here, you can always start to reach down to the ground or even bring that elbow to press against the knee. Bring the hand up or goal posting the arms, touch down, whatever it looks like for you. Coming back up to warrior two. I'm going to just adjust the stance of my feet and coming back into reverse warrior. Lifting the hand up or even tucking behind your back. Staying nice and open here. Working into that side body. We're not trying to crumple down into our ribs in either way, but we're getting taller and then adding a bend in. Excellent. Come back to warrior two. Sink into that front leg. And then come back up to the front of your mat. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up. Sink down into chair. And then fold forward. Dangling down. Feeling the release of the low back. Dropping the head heavy. Maybe even bringing the hands behind the legs. Or grabbing fingertips. Or grabbing ankles, or sorry, not ankles, wrists, or forearms. Coming in, adding a little bit of leverage, bringing the chest closer to the knees. Exhale, release the hands. Bending the knees, pressing into the heels, come back up to standing. Bring hands to heart center. Pressing into your hands, activating into those arms and those shoulders, rolling the back, maybe even pretending you have a pencil between your shoulder blades and you're squeezing it, holding it there. And then relaxing the shoulders. I'm going to face towards you, but you can stay at the top of your mat. Coming now into a nice side bend. So inhale, sweep the hands up. Drop those shoulders back and down. Maybe even bring hands to steeple and extend them up. Imagining on your next inhale that you're getting as tall as possible. You're tucking those ribs under and in and getting nice and tall through your spine. Now start to tip over to your favorite side. Grounding down into your feet. Not crunching down into your ribs, but trying to create space on both sides of the body and then engaging in a bend. So your core is nice and strong here. Both feet are anchored down and bending a little bit deeper. Maybe even bringing the hands to the back of your head to open up those shoulder blades even more. Coming into what I like to refer to as boss arms. Inhale, coming back up to standing. Exhale over to the other side, getting nice and tall first, and then opening up and bending into it. Making sure that you're keeping weight into both of your feet. Your core is nice and active. Inhaling, getting a little bit taller, imagining more space being created between your ribs, And then exhaling, tipping forward, really isolating into that side body. Inhale back up. Excellent. Inhale, sweep the hands up. Exhale, drop them down. Now, coming into our balanced posture today, we're going to keep it simple, but planting into your favorite side first. I'm going to plant my right side down and getting those left feet nice and light. Bring the knee up forward and then opening up into the hip. And then rooting that left foot either just onto the mat, having toes be on the mat, ankle be on the foot, or if you want, you can start to bring that leg up, engaging into more of the balanced posture, keeping a nice bend to that standing leg, or like it's able to bounce. Opening up the collarbones. Inhale, sweep the hands up. Enjoy the fact that my dog just ran through the screen. This is our tree posture. Feeling all the micro movements happening in your feet. Finding a spot on the floor that is your focal point or your drishti point. Tucking those ribs in, engaging the core. If you want to make this more challenging on the balance without moving your legs or arms, you can just change your gaze by either looking higher up on the floor or by starting to lift your gaze up, even looking towards the ceiling. Feeling how that really intensifies the balance and makes it harder. All right, bring the hands down, bring the leg in front of you, and then dropping it down. Maybe rolling out those ankles, as we did hold that for a decent amount of time. Now I'm planting into my left side, or you doing into the other side, whatever that works for you. Keeping a little bounce to that knee, not hyperextending it back, but keeping it nice and flexible. Starting to bring that right leg up, and either opening it up and planting the toes on the mat, heel on your standing leg, or bringing it up a little higher, or with a helping hand bringing it above the knee. Standing up nice and strong, engaging that core, getting a little bit taller, finding a focal point on the ground, and then raising the arms. Keeping that collarbone nice and open, and still imagining that string pulling you up. Playing around with the gaze now, maybe even looking up a little bit higher, or lifting the head, looking at the ceiling. All right, pressing into our tree pose here, and now releasing the hands, bringing the leg forward, and then dropping it down, not falling out of our tree pose. Shaking that out however you might need to. Inhaling, bringing the hands up. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Now bending the knees, planting the hands into the mat, and then stepping our legs back. Dropping our knees down, and then coming down, laying onto our backs. Getting ready for our final Shavasana, but I always like to end with a twist. So, hugging the knees in, and dropping them down to your favorite side. We're going to do both sides, so it doesn't matter. Maybe even stacking the knees on top of each other for this version. Seems we kept them open at the beginning of class. If you want more here, you can always bring your hand on top of your knees, adding a little bit of weight, pulling the legs down, or looking over to the side opposite of your knees, engaging the neck here. Feeling the twist happen from your neck all the way through your spine. Relaxing down here. Keeping both shoulders firmly planted on the ground, sinking into your mat. Inhale, return the head to neutral. Bring the knees back up and drop them down to the other side. Stacking knees on top of each other. Use any blocks or bolsters to prop up the space between your knees and the floor. Keeping both shoulders planted onto the ground. And looking to the side opposite of your knees to engage the entire neck and spine in the twist. Inhaling and exhaling here. Enjoying a state of calm and relaxing. Inhale, return the neck back up to neutral, looking towards the ceiling. Bringing the legs back up, maybe even hugging them into the chest, giving yourself one more little lower back massage. And getting ready for our final Shavasana. Maybe grabbing a block or a bolster and placing it underneath your knees. Or maybe even just a pillow. Just to really relax those legs. Having your feet splay open, roll those shoulder blades under the back. Have your palms facing up to keep that collarbone open. And tuck the chin slightly, creating that space along the back of the neck. Coming into a nice relaxing position. Releasing any stress or tension that you might be feeling. And scanning the body. Noticing to what feels really great. Sending love and gratitude there. And feeling any areas that might still have some tension in them. Understanding that one yoga class is not going to fix everything. That we are always a work in progress. Sending love and the breath there to breathe into those tension spaces. Bringing a sense of calm and relaxing. Letting the fingers curl in, not trying to keep them pressing open. Letting the hands relax fully. The arms sink down. The shoulders have gravity, keeping them open, pressing them into your mat. Relax your forehead and your jaw. Relax your tongue. Maybe letting the tip of it press against the roof of your mouth. Ever so softly. Returning to the breath. Stimulating that rest and digest system by doing some deep breathing. Taking 10 or 12 or 15 deep breaths here. Inhaling, feeling the rib cage open, belly swelling up. Exhaling, feeling the belly fall, rib cage sink down. Breathing at your own pace, not trying to force the breath here, other than deep inhales and exhales. Inhaling and exhaling. Starting to bring some awareness back to the body. Wiggling fingers and toes, inviting some soft, gentle movements back in. Rolling wrists and ankles. Getting any final cracks out. Taking one more good morning stretch. Bring your hands above your head. Pointing the toes, getting nice and tall. Saying a nice good morning, even though it might be the middle of the afternoon or the evening for yourself. Rolling over to your favorite side. Removing any props. Keeping the eyes closed. Coming into fetal position. Pressing into the floor with your top hand, coming up into seated. Stacking shoulders over hips, getting nice and tall. Still imagining that string pulling up from the top or the crown of your head, rolling shoulders back and down, having hands on your knees, either facing downwards or upwards, whatever feels better for you today. Enjoying one more deep breath. Fluttering the eyes open. I would like to thank you so much for doing a yoga class, letting me lead you and guide you. I hope you had some fun and our nice slow movements today, having safe transitions. I pray that you always be blessed and your next endeavors are lots of fun and exciting. May you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, or night. Be blessed. Namaste.